Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a YouTube message. The first question for today comes from Low End Gaming, and it is, what do you think about adding a weapon bonus for each faction? What I'm trying to say is that each side has its homemade weapons, and when you're playing as a Russian soldier sticking with Russian guns, then you should have, for example, a reload time bonus or 20% less recoil bonus. This is a really interesting idea. Of course, if this was added, they would need to balance everything out, like it couldn't be too crazy. But what I like about this concept is that it would really bring in a lot more weapon diversity to the battlefield. Because you guys know right now, a lot of people gravitate towards some of the best weapons in the game. You got like the L85 for the assault class, the Ace 23 is very popular. I have a feeling when the Bulldog comes out, a lot of people are gonna use that bad boy. But you notice that a lot of people use the weapons that rise to the top, the premium guns in the game. But if there was also this underlining subtle mechanic in place where if you were playing as a specific faction and you were using those faction specific weapons, you would have a slight small bonus, that could be amazing. Let's say, for example, I'm playing as the US. I'm using the M16A4, which right now isn't a very popular weapon. But now, since I'm playing as the US, I also maybe can reload it a little bit faster because US soldiers probably use the M16, the M16s a lot when they're training, so they should be accustomed to how the weapon performs and probably can reload that bad boy faster than a Chinese soldier. That small bonus, nothing significant by any means, we don't want to make it overpowered, but it could give you an edge or an incentive to try and use these weapons over the popular, like, the Ace 23 or the popular guns in the game. That could be just a really cool way to go about it. Of course they would need to balance it. Of course they could not make it so that some guns all of a sudden just become blatantly overpowered when you're playing as a specific faction. But honestly, this could be really cool. Like, I love the concept. I don't think it's gonna happen for Battlefield 4, but if the developers pick up on this and they want to do something for like Battlefield 5 or the next big Battlefield title, maybe even for, actually it's not gonna happen for Battlefield Hardline because it's criminals versus cops, but if the next big faction versus faction warfare Battlefield comes along and they have this mechanic, if it's implemented correctly, I think it could be an amazing addition into the game. The next question comes from Snake Venom, and it is, do you think that Visceral should remove the self-revive gadget for the operator class in Battlefield Hardline, or do you think it was a good idea and should remain in the game? No, this is probably one of the worst additions to a first-person shooter that I've seen in a very, very long time. Like, the gadget isn't fun to play against. Like, I get it, they're trying to add more customization. Like, a lot of first-person shooters, and really gaming in general, they like to just throw a lot of gadgets and customization at you because then they're like, oh hey, we've got 25 gadgets, you can play this game however the hell you want, there's so much customization, buy our game, buy our game. It's basically a talking point. But from a gameplay standpoint, if you kill someone and let's say they're in a window or behind a window, they die, quote unquote die, they fall down to the ground, but you can't see them at that point because they're now below the windowsill. You then have to wait a couple of seconds to see if they're gonna pop right back up. Like, that sucks. And for most players, they're gonna move on. They're gonna go push up onto an objective, they're gonna go try killing someone else, and if the person then revives themselves, waiting for the right opportunity because they know the guy just went off to go kill someone else, revives back up on their feet and shoots them right in the back, that is a very, very poor game design. And I realize that some people have tried to make the argument that it adds more skill into the game, because if you get a headshot on someone or you kill them with an explosive device, they can't be revived with the mechanic, or if you just put an extra bullet into them, it will finish them off for good. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that there are going to be these moments where you kill someone, or you think you kill someone, their body falls behind a barrier, so you can't be notified that they're down on the ground for good, like they're in a prone position. You have no idea. You're going to move on to the next objective, or you're going to go off and try to kill someone else. They're going to pop up, and I don't even care if you make it so that they only pop up with like 10% health, so if anyone sneezes at them, they're going to die. I don't even care if you try to nerf it to that point. There are still going to be these frustrating moments where someone pops up right after you killed them and take you out by shooting you right in the back. That is not a fun game design. It shouldn't be in the game, and I'm really hoping that Visceral takes this into consideration and just removes it entirely. The next question comes from Eric, and it is, what do you think about the option to equip a paintball pistol as one of your gadgets, and when you shoot at someone with it, they get spotted because there's a tracer in the bullets you fire? This sounds very similar to the tracer pistol that we had back in Bad Company 2, and while I really liked the pistol back then because you could mark and you could light up helicopters and vehicles so that people could lock onto those vehicles and take them out really easily, it was not used for spotting enemies or spotting infantry units, and that's simply because why in the world would you ever want to switch over to a secondary weapon where you have a line of sight on an enemy? Let's say he's just, 20 feet in front of you. Why would you ever switch it over to your pistol to mark him and spot him? Even if he's spotted forever, even if the guy is always spotted, he can never get rid of the tracer because he doesn't realize it's on him. Even if that was the case, I can't see why anyone would want to use this particular gadget, because if they just were using their primary weapon, they would have killed him anyways, and there would be no reason to have him spotted. Like, the reason why you spot people is either so that when they duck behind cover, you sort of know where they are, or if you're not within range to take them out, hopefully your teammates will be able to know where they are and then take them out for you. Like, that's what the spotting mechanic has been all about with the Battlefield franchise. And really, the only way I could see this being somewhat useful is if the gadget traveled extremely quickly and it was laser beam like accurate. So if I see someone that's like across the map, I know I'm not going to be able to take them out with my primary weapon. It's a camping sniper on top of one of these rooftops. I can switch it over to this gadget, mark him for my teammates, and then go on my way to go capture an objective or something like that. Then I could see that being useful. But if you're marking people, and I'm assuming you're marking them indefinitely because it's got to be better than just normal spotting, so I'm assuming that they're always going to be on the minimap at that point. I don't know if that is necessarily a good mechanic to begin with, because who wants to be on the minimap always? Like, everyone already hates being marked as the commander's high priority target. Like, when you're doing well, the commander can come in, slap you, and be like, no, 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 sir, you've been doing too well. Now everyone on the map knows exactly where you are. A little broken, in my opinion. And so if there was a gadget that essentially did that, kept you on the minimap indefinitely, you never were off the minimap until you died, I have a feeling that many people would not enjoy that mechanic in the game. Like, sure, for the player that just marked them across the map, they would be giddy like a little schoolgirl because they know that that person is basically condemned to death at that point. But for the person on the receiving end of it, it wouldn't be the best gameplay experience. And really, the only way I could see this being added into the game is if it worked the same way that it did back in Bad Company 2 with the Tracer Dart. You couldn't lock onto infantry because why would you to begin with? You could just use your primary weapon to take them out anyways. But it was awesome at taking out tanks and helicopters. It was hard to lock onto a helicopter, like it was a slow moving projectile, but once you locked it onto a heli, like there was no way for them to get rid of it, and it was pretty much a death sentence. You still had to rely on your teammates. Like, you had to have your teammates lock onto it with their RPGs, so there was that nice team dynamic, which I always loved about the Tracer Dart, but it was still a solid game mechanic. And so while I like where your head is going, because I love the Tracer Dart back in Bad Company 2, I don't think a paintball gun to mark infantry is the best way to go. The next question comes from Mr. Blobby, and it is, how do you feel about paying $110 for Battlefield and Premium product if they release a new game every year? Now, what do I think about paying $110 for an entire year's worth of fun and enjoyment? I would say that was a pretty good investment. Like, I don't get this argument, and maybe you guys can let me know down below in the comment section, because I get this question all the time, and that is that people seem to be very, very upset that they've paid $110 for Battlefield 4 and Premium, and they're getting all their content an entire year, where back in Battlefield 3, it took about a year and a half for them to get all of their DLC content. But what confuses me about this is that the only difference between the two games is that they spread out the DLC content a little bit so that it lasted, or quote-unquote lasted, a little bit longer. It's still the same amount of maps. We're actually, I think, getting more weapons in Battlefield 4 if we get more weapons for the last DLC. I think that would accumulate to having more weapons total for the game being added. I think we're getting about the same amount of new vehicles. Like, it's the same amount of content, but it's just in 1 year instead of a year and a half. And I just don't get it. Like, if I spend $110 on anything and I get hundreds of hours of enjoyment and it lasts me for an entire year, I would say that was a very, very good investment. And I think a lot of gamers out there seem to be entitled because of what they quote-unquote got last time with Battlefield 3, but even Battlefield 3 was the same amount of content, it was just spaced out longer. And so really, I just think you have to look at it through that viewpoint. Like, if you can't make the DLC content last as long with Battlefield 4 compared to Battlefield 3, that's on you. It's the same exact amount of content, and if it doesn't last you 2 years like it did with Battlefield 3, that's on your end. That's not on the fault of DICE. They're giving you the same product, the same amount of content, but if you can't make it last as long, that's completely on you. And so if I'm completely wrong, maybe you guys will let me know. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people saying that I'm just an asshole and I'm sucking up to EA. Could be further from the truth, but look, if you look at it, it's the same amount of content. Like, I feel like a crazy person at this point. And if I pay $110 once again, if I pay that amount of money and it gives me hundreds and hundreds of hours of enjoyment and it lasts me an entire year, I would say that was an amazing investment. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can leave a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.